What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Matty P here with another episode of Steelers Touchdown Under. We are talking all things Pittsburgh Steelers. We are talking all things like defensive linemen, defensive ends, draft picks, all those good blokes. That's who we're talking about. So really excited to talk to you guys about that today. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. My mic's been having a little bit of issues. We had the tech issues yesterday. So hopefully you can hear me. Let me know in the comments, Daredevil, if you guys are good. We've just had a couple of tech issues the last 24 hours, and I'm glad that I think I'm through them. But hopefully it is all good in the comments, mate. All right, sweet as. Because it's funny, even though I logged into this, it told me that the mic wasn't working. But anyway, the Pittsburgh Steelers draft season is like in full swing. Through most of the defensive prospects that I like to preview in the draft, we're now getting into defensive line and defensive tackle. Now, it is interesting. I'm going to do a number of things on today's show. One, we're going to go through my top prospects on the D-line. Why D-line together? Because there's a lot of players that will be in a 3-4, where we're a defensive end in a 4-3. Then it changes in how they play on the defensive line in a 3-4. Likewise, there's guys in a 3-4 that you might play in a slightly different position in a 4-3. Then it comes down to schematics like sub-package, all those different things. So I like to think of the D-line prospects as a collective, and then we focus on the guys who are going to play interior. Now, obviously, for the Steelers, it's interior where we're looking at really, because of the, and we are going to talk about Sweat Daredevil. So the other thing we're going to talk about is not just the rankings, but we're also going to talk about, in terms of their prospects and their fits with the Steelers, we're then going to look at some of those stats about who's where, all those good things I like to do. And then I'm going to show you, I ran a mock draft. Now, everyone can run 1,000 different mock drafts and get a different result. But I ran a mock draft just to see where defensive tackles fell. And that actually simulated Trevondre Sweat as well falling. So really interesting decision that had been made there. But I've also been listening this morning to Greg Cosell from NFL Films and his offensive lineman prospects. And it's been a really good, interesting thought about, as I go into this show with you guys, how are these prospects going to take on people at the NFL? Because the reality is that, like, that's a great joke. So Daredevil said Sweat was smalling, and George Teston said, is it that on there? I love it. But it's also thinking like the prospects. You know, these guys that play well in college, but it's all about the draft is about how they project to the NFL. And that's what really I think about when I do my rankings for these players. So with that, we're going to get into those guys. Obviously, throughout this show, it's a live show. You guys chat to me. You guys ask me questions, all that good stuff. But yeah, we're going to try and go through the rankings of the prospects. We're going to go through the stats, and then we're going to go through the mock draft side of things as well. All right, so first thing I want to do is obviously the ranking side of things. Now, hopefully this is pretty big for everyone. I don't want to get lost in it. But the first guy off the list is Byron Murphy. Byron Murphy, the second, out of Texas, interior defensive lineman, a shorter guy. When I think about the Steelers, he'd be huge for us in the middle. He's like Kalijah Cansey, but he's honestly, but probably a better prospect. But he's probably not going to be there for the Steelers because even the Bengals probably will go ahead and draft this guy before the Steelers do. So Byron Murphy, I just think he's an awesome player. I just don't think the Steelers are going to be in for him. But they might be in for his partner from Texas, and we'll talk about that. Then you got Johnny Newton out of Illinois, fluctuated round. A lot of people have him as a first-round draft pick. The draft dudes were saying that they have him as literally a difference of a whole, almost the length of the first draft, but he still fits into the first draft compared to Murphy. So that makes Murphy a top 10 pick in their eyes. That's really interesting, I think, as well. It is 21-4 for me. Yeah, no 420 for me. So that's kind of interesting with Johnny Newton, but I do not expect him to be there when the Steelers picking. And I'm actually, in watching a little bit of his tape and looking at a few of his stats, I don't know how well he's going to do in a 3-4. I just, especially the way the Steelers play their 3-4, and they play the amount of sub-package they play. So I'm not sold on Johnny Newton, but he's a very high-ranking guy. You can't put it past him. Very productive. Then you look at Darius Robinson out of Missouri. Really intriguing guy. Now, he's one of the more pure defensive ends on my list, and I haven't picked many defensive ends from the pure perspective of the Steelers have got Hayward, Ogunjobi. Benton should be looking to play him outside of nose tackle, defensive tackle. I know he didn't play deep nose there, but that's kind of the slot they've got him in right now. And they brought in Lowry, and Lowry's more a defensive end than defensive tackle in a 3-4. So
I haven't gone heavy on defensive ends. It's also really hard when you're looking at college because there are a lot of guys that try and fit like an edge rusher and a 4-3. They're like 260, 270, that ultimately could play at 280, 290 and be a really good 3-4 defensive end. But that doesn't help the Steelers straight out. But Darius Robinson tested and he's like 287 pounds. So from my perspective, you go on this list because if you went and got this guy, if he fell, I think this guy could go back into the first. He could go early in the second. If for whatever reason he fell because there's a run in other positions, not for anything that he's done wrong, I could just see there being a scenario where that does happen. Then I could imagine as well that the Steelers, it'd be hard to pass up on him. And, the guy's black and gold all day long. They got the gold helmet out there at Missouri. It looks really good. So I like Darius Robinson. We'll go through some of the stats as to why as well. Then you've got Brandon Dorlus out of Oregon, who is starting to creep up the draft conversation, really trying to creep up, starting to become part of the conversation around drafting players in terms of really good defensive tackles that showed they could transition well to the NFL, but weren't necessarily top performers on the stat sheet. So that's kind of a really interesting situation as well. With that, that's a good segue into Ryan's question, particularly, which is, how early do you think they'll draft a DT? You guess round 2, seems very up in the air. Yeah, it does. And this is, again, a bit how does the draft board fall? Because when I finish these day 2 guys, so that's the other thing I should say as well. I got caught in another video where someone said, if you got the guy going on round 3, that guy's a 5th round player. This is the days that I expect them to pick, because I always think at this point in the draft, you think about if there are run-on positions. So that fits very perfectly with Ryan's question. So when I think about this, again, I think it depends on the run on the positions, because, for instance, there's going to be a run on running backs at some point, probably in round 3. Is that because the defensive tackles and the cornerbacks are all gone in round 2 and the second round of the wide receivers are gone? That's going to be the really hard thing to do. Now, you look at the guys on the board that I've got for day 2. T'Vondre Sweat, Braden Fisk, Ruka Horoho, Michael Hall Jr., and Chris Jenkins. Mason Smith barely misses out for me. And I think he will have a better career than some of those players in the NFL as well. Now, Brandon also said is a guy that's starting to get mentioned in the first round or day 1, but probably a day 2 pick on all the basic probabilities, purely because of the production didn't necessarily match what he may do in the NFL. So that kind of is where it is. That there's nothing but that's just a situation of where it is right now. But when you look at the other guys in Sweat, Fisk, Horoho Jr., and Jenkins, this is where I see them as grading and ranking. Now, T'Vondre Sweat is a 3rd round player right now because of the situation he put himself in. As the draft dudes, Kyle Krabs said, he does Locked On Miami Dolphins as well. He said, there's only one thing you got to do this time of year. Test well, and he tested well. He kept his weight under 380. It was 366, even though at the combine he didn't weigh in at the Senior Bowl, which is very rare for people not to weigh in at the Senior Bowl these days. And then had the DUI or DWI, and now has fallen down the boards to the fact he could be even picked early 4th round. So he's probably cost himself a significant 6-figure sum of money. Then you got Braden Fisk. Now, I have been a big fan of Braden Fisk going back to January, before the Senior Bowl, before the combine where he tested out of the gym, all those different things. I've been a massive fan of Braden Fisk. He's started to come on everyone else's attention kind of since then. I'm sure he was on college teams' attention. He's on NFL teams' attention. It's not like I'm some, the guru. Yeah, he kind of did. Especially, it's also especially unacceptable in terms of him, particularly after everything that happened with Henry Ruggs and Rashid Rice and a few of the other players that are in this situation. It's really just don't. But Braden Fisk, the problem, his pass weight rim percentage is actually quite low, and that's a concern that the draft dudes brought up in terms of how he transitions to the NFL. No one can argue his high motor. No one can argue his production. But whether that translates to the NFL will be a bit of a question, because he doesn't win some of his pass rates. Now, I kind of think when I heard that, it's all a bit of a hullabaloo. We talk about win-pass rates of Myles Garrett. He's still not getting more sacks than TJ Watt. Braden Fisk in a Steelers defense and a defensive line and linebacker core, I think he would absolutely feast. So I'm still a fan of Fisk. I still think he's worth an end of day 2, regardless of that assessment discussion. Then you got Ruka Horoho out of Clemson. Hopefully I got that right. I think I did. Now, Ruka Horoho is massively high on people's list. People have him in the early 2nd round. Some people have him as the best day 2 defensive lineman, defensive tackle out there. I don't. I don't. The reason why I don't is that I know he can make plays. I know he's flashed stuff on tape. I know he's got some really cool stats behind him. I know he's a big guy. I know he's a quick guy. So you're going, hang on, Matty, like, what's the problem with him then? The problem with a Horoho for me is that it doesn't do it day in, day out. So you have to, if you're drafting this guy, and this is why he's not a first round pick, for example, you want to know that you can get that out of him every single day, every single snap. Well, that's got to be your ultimate goal. And I'm not sure you're going to get that out of Ruka Horoho. I'm really not. And it kind of strikes me as like when Ogunjobi came into the league. It's a bit of an Ogunjobi player. Can be really, really good. But game in, game out, maybe not. And that can be something that can develop over the time, fine. But this is a guy, when you're drafting in the second round, you need to be producing from year 2 onwards. And I'm not sure you're going to get that early with Ruka Horoho. So I haven't marked down. Michael Hall Jr., and as I say, these guys on day 2 can come in any order. Michael Hall Jr. is someone that I know the Steelers are in on. They talked a lot about him at the Senior Bowl. They did a lot with him. Apparently, it came up. He's had meetings with the Steelers, came up again at Combine. He tested pretty well. And most of these guys, and this is, Jed, we absolutely hit the nail on the head, particularly when I talk through the mock draft. I've done it with an idea of like who's going to fall well under Captain Cam's wing. And that is the point, because I did something different in the mock draft that I've not really seen other people doing that much. So this is, mate, you are on the money. Michael Martin, you absolutely hit the nail on the head with this. Here we go. I love it. And then can we pair that with one of Michael Hall Jr.'s best traits? And that is his age. Michael Hall Jr. will be drafted at 20, will turn 21 in the league. He doesn't have the stats on the stat sheet from a box score perspective, but he's a very disruptive player. And that's and this is why I think he's caught the attention of Mike Tomlin. It's a very Mike Tomlin player. Mike Tomlin likes guys that can go in there and be disruptive. They don't necessarily have to be massive on the stat sheet. Example, when he talks about Jacksonville last year before they played Jacksonville, he talked about Trayvon Walker and the other kid they got early as well, and talked about the fact that these guys are disruptive on plays. They don't necessarily come up on the stat sheet all the time, but they destroy you. That's what happened with Aaron Donald at the start as well. And Aaron Donald turned into a freak. I'm not saying Michael Hall Jr. is going to be that bloke. He's shorter as well. That affects his grade. Like a little bit, it has affected Byron Murphy. But Michael Hall Jr. is a very good prospect and a very young prospect. And again, you hit it on the nail on Daredevil in that if Michael Hall Jr. can get under Captain Cam's wing for a year or two, this could be really powerful. And him with Benson as well, and that physical, powerful, like, it's not finesse. It's just this raw. Yeah, I love the raw power of it. It's kind of hard to articulate, but this guy's explosive. I like it. Then you got Chris Jenkins. Now, I'm not sold on Chris Jenkins. I was hoping he'd have a really good combine, test out of the gym. That would make me feel better about him, about a 3-4 D lineman rather than a 4-3 interior guy. He didn't do that. That's where he needed to do it. He's going to be a good player. He's going to be a decent player in the NFL. I'm not disputing that. That's why I put the day 2 to 3 in there. Well, I don't love it for the Steelers. I don't think he's got a higher motor as people think. And yeah, I'm just not. I'm not there on the Chris Jenkins trade. I think you can get better value for other positions where he's going to be drafted. Hey, Gene, welcome. Yeah, I was meant to go live yesterday, and I had every tech problem manageable with my imaginable and manageable because it wasn't manageable. I spent 80 minutes trying to fix it. My media hub went down that links all my devices together, microphones, webcams, 2 screens, all the rest of it. Then when that started like kind of half working, my mouse didn't work. Then the screen and the monitor went down. It was a bad time. But anyway, we're back. We're here. We're doing the show. We've got a good live chat going. But yeah, it should come up with notifications. So I've noticed YouTube's been being really silly with live notifications. Ryan Leaf, this is a good segue as well into a few questions. I love it. Jed, I'll have to give you admin status as well. I think Marky D's got you on that on Steeler Nation Oz as well, which you should go check out. But yeah, we had a few of them. But Ryan, I would say it is. I just don't think it's as high a level. I think it's through the mid rounds it starts to get really deep, and it's kind of funny because it's like, remember my what I said last year around draft was like, draft for the Steelers needs to be trenchy in the trenches, not trendy. And the same thing applies this year, except the cool thing is when the offensive tackles start to peter out, then the defensive tackles and defensive ends start to come in. So it's kind of a really good draft for the Steelers if they focus on these positions. The problem is we do need a wide receiver. The problem is we do need help at cornerback. And they require high picks unless there's a prospect you really, really like. So that's the only challenge, but that's why it's good you got 2 third-rounders. It's good you got an Omar Khan, not a Kevin Colbert, in that he's prepared to trade and move around and do all those good things. Michael Martin says, I've never really looked at Chris Jenkins' side. No. Yeah, he was an interesting prospect. I was higher on him earlier in the draft process. All right. So we've got 14 players. We're through 9 of them, and then we're going to look at some stats, and then we're going to look at this mock draft idea as well of what happened when I ran a simulation. So then I've got Mason Smith. Now, Mason Smith is a day 3 player for most people. I think he will show over the course of his career in the right scheme, the right system, with the right team, that he was worthy of a day 2 pick. Mason Smith, 5-star recruit coming out, played at LSU, had some injury history, didn't have a productive year last year. Some people felt on tape that he looked lazy, that he gave up a little bit. I don't know if I'd go that far, but I definitely saw less energy than what this guy showed earlier on at LSU. But he was playing on a team with interesting prospects. He was playing in a defense that lacked some of the talent that it usually has. He was coming off of injury, and he knew he'd need to be, he had to play. He couldn't not play this year because of where he needed to be drafted. He's a massive guy in the 6'6s, over 300 pounds. Man, he may make the tackles. He's got the pedigree. He's got the potential. And he does have earlier in his career some proven performance. You'd like to see more of it. But, I really do like Mason Smith. And I think he's sitting there on day 5. I know they don't have the pick there. You find a way to, in round 5, sorry. You go and get the guy. Even in late round 4. I really like Mason Smith. And then Jedel says highly unlikely, but I think they might. They may well bring him back. And him as a 3rd or 4th corner could be really helpful and help Pink stay that mentor. If they can get him on veteran minimum or barely a little bit more, and maybe some incentives for snaps, then yeah, I'm all for that. Then we get to one of my favorite defensive line prospects in this NFL draft. He is being slept on by the entire league. I thought he might come out last year and he didn't. He's Gabe Hall. Baylor, Gabe Hall. Oh, you haven't. All right. Well, we could talk about linebackers as well. If we get through this, yeah, Ryan, I'm happy to go through the linebackers again. That's the beauty of a live. But yeah, cool. So Gabe Hall is, as I say, one of my favorite guys. Why? He's not a 1st round day 1 guy. Absolutely not. He's not an early day 2 round guy. But he could have a career worthy of a late day 2 guy. So you ask me, why is this guy ranging from 7th round to 5th round? Occasionally you see him in the back of the 4th. Because he's not a 4-3 scheme defensive lineman. He is a classic 3-4 tackle. He's 6'6". He's over 313 pounds. I think he played out last year over that. He's definitely over 300 pounds, testing that at the combine. A lot more athletic in combine. He had a decent combine. If you go back and I can pull some of that up, but he had a really good combine from a prospect with his grade. This guy actually could deliver on where I think we all thought the Steelers were thinking when they got Loudermilk, but that never happened. This guy, but also I think Loudermilk was a wrong prospect in a 3-4. But Gabe Hall, length, size, speed. He's not going to be the best pass rushing defensive lineman out there, but he's going to soak up the middle and he's going to free everyone else up. And I think he's just as good at no, he's not just as good as Trevondre Sweat, but at the cheap of cost of Sweat, he's going to be pretty good, and he's got really good experience. He's a proven player, and he's played 5 years in college. So I really like Gabe Hall. If he's available day late, even if you're doubling up on DT, you go get the guy. He just rock solid. All right, let's move deeper down into my list. So then we've got Keith Randolph Jr., who I had much higher earlier on in the draft process, and he kind of fell down the boards a bit as well. But for a lot of people, he's day 3. He'll go really early on day 3. He could go mid day 3. He could, for whatever reason, if someone doesn't like something about him, he's an anywhere on day 3 guy, depending on the team, depending on the scheme, depending on who's already picked a DT. Sweat without the punch. I love that. Jenna, well, that could be comment of the day, mate. Michael Martin's got it there. Let's see what you come up with later on. Then you got McKinley Jackson, who's a really good guy. Again, and you wonder why I've got him late. He's all over the board when you look at mock drafts and draft boards. But he's quite a proven player at Texas A&M. I got to say, I don't trust defensive linemen for a little bit out of there after the Leal situation. But yeah, I think McKinley Jackson's someone that it would be remiss for me not to have him on this list. And honestly, like, I don't think there's the gap that some draft nicks out there think might exist between him and even a Chris Jenkins or a Mason Smith or someone like that. But again, there's not a trait that I love about him, except he's got some decent production. And then you get a guy called Evan Anderson, who you are probably going to hear very few people talk about. I've been on this guy's train, and tape's really hard to come by for this guy, but I've been on this guy's train since like maybe mid-Jan. Yeah, it would have late Jan. It would have been around East West Shrine Bowl. So yeah, a little bit after late January, Feb. And Evan Anderson, yeah, all right, Ryan. Yeah, we'll talk about. Okay, yep, we can talk about that. But yeah, Evan Anderson is a guy I really like at FAU. He played really well in the Shrine Bowl. When we show some stats, he actually has performed pretty well compared to a lot of people. An unsung name, if you like, because of the fact that he plays at FAU, not like a massive like college compared to an Ohio State or a Clemson or a Michigan or a Texas. Like, there are big names we've got on this list. Nothing wrong with FAU. It's just in terms of the college division he plays in. But he's a big guy. He's agile, and he can be productive. I'm not saying this guy's a 5th round pick. He's probably not a 6th round pick. And then you start to say, well, then why would we go after the guy? He's a bit of a project, but he flashes the stuff on tape. And the Steelers went out and turned Brett Kiesel into something, right? Yes, some different coaching stuff. But Evan Anderson at FAU in the 7th, or even with that, in the pick was at 195, I think it is off the top of my head, the 6th round pick. And you haven't picked a DT yet, or you picked another DT that you're not dead set on. Go get Evan Anderson. And if he makes it, he doesn't get drafted by someone. And someone will probably draft this kid high. It'll be like in the 5th round and it'll shock everyone. But you heard it here first. I'm talking about Evan Anderson. I think he's a great prospect. But I do think that with Evan Anderson, if he somehow made it UDFA, you throw a 6-figure sum at him. Usually people only get in the 5 figures or 4 figures as a UDFA to come over and be on the practice squad and stuff like that. But you throw 6 figures at this guy and you make him a Pittsburgh Steeler, because this guy with the right could be something with the development. He's really unsung. And as Ryan said before, it's a pretty deep defensive tackle class, without a doubt. So yeah, really like Evan Anderson. Kelly, thank you for the shout out. Yeah, we're growing. Do you want to see on time defensive? Yeah, we will do. Yeah, we'll do some live streams. Depends on like the actual the games and stuff. But yeah, we'll definitely bring that into perspective for sure. But live streams will continue. I try to aim for 1 live a week. Some will be more. Obviously, I will announce later in the week via a post. So if you're a sub, you'll get that post. If you're not a sub and you're watching this, hit that sub button, then you'll see the post. But we will be doing 3 days. We'll be doing draft content across all 3 days. I will be going live on day 3. That might be a co-stream with Marky D, my old co-host from who runs Steel Nation Australia. I will be doing day 2 live again. That might be a co-1, but definitely day 3 one I'll be doing. He might join me on this one, but we're going to do a dual live stream, which is an interesting prospect. On day 1, I'm going to do a show early morning my time, late afternoon, early evening for you guys before the draft kicks off. We're going to do a draft preview show, all the latest rumors, happenings, rankings, discussions, hopes, and dreams from everyone of you guys in the live chat. We'll focus on that. We will then do a reaction video to the first pick. I won't go live into the first pick probably, but then after the first pick and that reaction video is out, then I'll go live and we'll start talking through the rest of the first round and seeing what happens there. So definitely there'll be a lot of draft content from that perspective. Yeah, well, I hope we grab him. He went yesterday on a mock I did to Cleveland, which absolutely pissed me off. But it kind of fits the bill for them actually. All right, so that's the 14 guys from that perspective. Now, if we look at some defensive grades for these guys, so there's going to be a lot of numbers on the screen right now. Like I'm going to talk through them. Obviously, there's some people listen, they don't watch the screen the whole time with YouTube. I listen to YouTube on the background with heaps of things. But I basically sorted all of the defensive tackles eligible, of interior defensive linemen eligible that are being designated that way. They're not edge guys, so there should be guys that fit a 3-4 schematic. I've sorted these guys into players that are eligible for the 2024 draft year, not all college players, because some college players will be better than these prospects, which is always a good thing to keep in mind when we hear good college stats of draft picks. And then I've sorted it as well by they have had to have played 50% of the 803 snaps that the most, which is the most amount a interior defensive lineman played in college last year. This is really important. I hear people throw around stats, and sometimes guys have this grade or they only let them out in this sacks and they haven't played enough snaps. So the 50% is a nice little benchmark for us in looking at some of these stats. All right. Overall defensive grade, the best guy is Trevondre Sweat. He eats up the run, right? Absolutely eats up the run. But what's interesting is last year he played 503 snaps on defense. Byron Murphy only played 438. And as much as he eats up the run snaps and he eats up the run, and in a way that's actually better than Jordan Davis. That's what the draft dude said. And I completely agree. This guy showed up on tape for a long time. His actual pass rush snaps are a lot higher, which is interesting, but also talks about people that are trying to run the football against the Texas Longhorns. It's bad news. Right. So you go Trevondre Sweat, Byron Murphy the second, Tyler Davis, who's another one that could have easily made anywhere between 11 and 15 on my list. Johnny Newton. These are guys we've all talked about. Chris Jenkins. Oh, boom. Here we go. Evan Anderson, 9th best defensive grade player. Now, I know we all don't love PFF grades, but I'll go through some other production as well. Kind of cool. Michael Hall Jr. is in there at 14. Brandon Dawes is there in 15. McKinley Jackson is there at 16. And we can go down. Braden Fisk at 25. Ruka Horoho at 21. And no, I had not spent hours practicing his name, but I am getting it right so far, which is a really good thing. Guy called Dwayne Carter out of Duke. I didn't put him on my list, but he is on some people's lists deeper into the draft. But that's from just their overall defensive grade. I don't like to talk about a 91 this and an 86 that, but I'm just showing you what the ranking was, because at the end of the day, the person with the best ranking, fine. Now, you look at overall sack production. Culpepper out of Toledo. Maybe this is a guy that goes somewhere. I've heard his name started to be bandied around. I'm going to look into him this week, maybe if we can before the draft. John Newton's up there with 8. Fisk had 6. You look at Horo had 5. Evan Anderson had 5. Again, Evan Anderson. Brandon Dorless 4. McKinley Jackson 4. We'll continue to go down the list. These are the top 50. These are the top 50 guys who play 50% of snaps coming out of college, and these are the rankings. Keith Randall Jr. at 3. We got Michael Hall Jr. at 2. And then, they're pretty much, I think Chris Jenkins was down there with 2 as well. If I go along to quarterback hits, Darius Johnson is a guy who had 7. He's an interesting prospect again, but I say that only because of Newton had 7. Dawes had 7. We look at Michael Hood Jr. had 5. I've been through most of all this, but Ruka Horo had 4. Byron Murphy only had 3. Trevondre Sweat had 3. So Trevondre Sweat, I've had him so much closer to Byron Murphy for a long time through the draft process, I should say. Braden Fisk with 3. You look at missed tackles. Now, this is a stat that I judge more than other people because I think it's really key. You've got to make your tackles. A missed tackle means someone else has got to make a play-saving tackle. And when I look at this, it's really, really interesting. Mason Smith didn't miss 1 tackle, 582 snaps overall, right? Which I think had him in the top 20. Mason Smith, top 15. Did not miss a single tackle. A single tackle. The Steelers have had players in here that have missed tackles before, and it's really cost us. Loudermilk does it particularly well. Yeah, he does well at missing tackles. I really like when a player doesn't miss a tackle. Johnny Newton missed tackles 20%. Now, players are going to be beaten for runs. That's going to happen. But when you don't miss tackles, you make it easier on everybody around you. And that's the culture of a Cam Hayward style culture. It shows that you can reach and play interior. Chris Jenkins only had 5.3%. That's pretty good as well for him and the division and the competition that he went up against. So I really kind of like that. Trevondre Sweat had 8.3%. But that's kind of interesting in terms of like the agility perspective, but he still eats up the run, played a stack of run plays. So these are just some absolutely like high level stat kind of stuff that I wanted to take you through. I don't want to bore you guys with like deep stats on everything, but I do want to take you through those things. Now, the other thing that I thought would be pretty cool that I did was I ran a mock draft. That's right. I ran a mock draft yesterday and I just simulated it. I actually happened to do a bit of trade backs at the Steelers just because I got offered some cool things and I thought that's kind of cool. So I did accept those. But the bigger point of the mock draft, I thought I may as well pick some Steelers players because we can talk about that as well. The point of the mock draft was to let it run through on today, and I use Pro Football Network's draft mock simulator because they constantly update their algorithm, unlike PFF. And PFF also weight their algorithm toward who the average person like, you, me, or I, they're going to pick. So I went with Pro Football Network, and I thought it was interesting because the algorithms come into play. They've updated again after Combine. They've updated again recently too because some interesting things happen. So we're going to run through it from the perspective, how did the defensive linemen, where were they picked and who were they picked and where were they picked? And then we'll look at, we can talk about my players that I picked as we go round by round. But I thought that'd be an interesting perspective, and and then obviously ask me whatever question you want about this mock draft, and then any other Steelers questions, and then we might look at Ryan and some of those later prospects that you wanted to look at. All right, so we did this. Basically, when I look at it, I did the draft in terms of ran the mock draft, didn't fiddle with anything, just 7th round, picked for the Steelers, made some trade backs. So when we look at that, that's actually not very big for you guys. So I'm going to bring it up in a different capacity. Let's do it this way because I think it's going to be better for you guys. Oh, no, it's not going to be better. No, we're going to do it that way. We're going to switch back. My bad. All right. Yeah. So when we look at these guys, overall, the first defensive tackle that was taken was Byron Murphy. He was taken, Johnny Newton. He was taken by Jacksonville at 17, shore up their defensive lineman. We then looked at Byron Murphy went next at 24. Now, you'll be like, where did you pick, Matty? I actually traded back in this draft. I traded with, believe it or not, Baltimore Ravens. You'll see why I actually got like some really good value picks in there. I got like 30 and 62, I think it was. Jared versus an edge. We didn't need him. Quinton Mitchell was off the board. Marismus was off the board. Fatana was off the board. Fuaga was off the board. I just didn't. Troy Fatana was off the board. Like all the good tackles. Fashanu was off the board. I really didn't want to. I didn't really love the prospect, so I traded back. But like JC Latham was there, Kibbe Deshaun was there. But anyway, I chose to trade back. Then you keep going through, and Ruka Horoho was taken at 41. Darius Robinson was taken at 39, considered an edge. Then you've got, he's small for you guys. I apologize for this. Then we also had Brandon Dawes taken at 62. So that was kind of interesting. We had Braden Fisk. Sorry, we had Mike Hall Jr. taken at 65 by the Bengals, which is an interesting decision. Then picking for the Steelers, and I'll show you my first and second round guys when we get through the defensive line aspect of it. I picked Braden Fisk out of Florida State, formerly of Western Michigan, not Western Kentucky, Western Michigan. Then you go through and you wait a little bit longer. So that's about 4 or 5. That's about 5, 6 of the guys off the board so far. Then you get to Marshawn Nealon going to Green Bay. Now, I could have put Marshawn Nealon on my draft rankings, except I didn't because he's definitely going to be more of a defensive end, and I don't think he's going to be available when the Steelers are going to want to draft that. So that was a key difference there as well. Chris Jenkins went 84 to Cleveland Browns. You might say, hang on, 84, isn't that what the Steelers picking? Yes, I traded back one spot to get a 7th rounder as well with the Browns, and that allowed me to get Roger Rosengarten, who was available there at 84, and I didn't think Cleveland wanted a tackle. Mason Smith went next to LSU. So he was a top 86 player in this draft. top 86 player. Then we went down Miko Wingo, who again was a prospect that some people say why wasn't on your list. I just didn't love everything that he did. He was also next to Mason Smith at LSU. I think that complemented Wingo at times. He went 94th overall. Then we move into round 4. James Williams, I picked him at 101. He's not a defensive lineman, but just thought I'd share that with you guys. Dwayne Carter out of Duke went 106. Then we had Trevondre Sweat, 111. So Trevondre Sweat fell in this draft. As I say, this is why I like Pro Football Network's mock draft. They do have the algorithm. He falls later. Now, I've already drafted Fisk at 64, but Sweat at 111, which is where you could get him on draft day. I didn't pick two. I didn't spend the time doing 250 picks. It literally fell this way. And I had 111 because I made some other trades, and I'll talk you through my draft and how I made the trades and what I got. But Trevondre Sweat at 111 in this NFL draft is insane. If he dropped 30, 40 more pounds, which I don't really love if he had to do that because I don't think it would be as strong at the combine. People will be comparing him a lot more to Jordan Davis. But yeah, that was incredible to get him at 111 and just completely fix the Steelers' run game, run defense with that, plus Cam, plus Benton. I freaking loved it. I absolutely loved it. Leonard Taylor out of Miami, who was briefly on my list, and then I swapped him out for Keith Randolph Jr. because Leonard Taylor is still a little bit suspect in terms of there's some stuff that you like the physical traits, but the tape and the production doesn't fully match it. Then we keep going right down the list, and I think the next defensive lineman was taken a double up there. I think the next defensive lineman went McKinley Jackson. That's right, at 135. That was when McKinley Jackson went. Hey, Fuzzy, what's up, mate? Then to close out the draft, so we talked about McKinley Jackson making it. And then Evan Anderson, he went to I remember him going to the Texans at 247. So he was there in the 7th round. So that was kind of interesting. There was 1 or 2 guys taking the middle, but that's really small for you guys. So I don't want to keep plugging away at that. But the point that I wanted to show you was that and it goes back to what Ryan was saying about the depth. There are some there's a lot of positions that will be drafted across all 3 days, but the depth and the amount of guys that were taken between pick 30 and pick 120, more like 140 was pretty substantive. So by the time we get to McKinley Jackson at 135, so it's definitely some really good mid-round talent at defensive line, interior defensive line when you think about the Steelers. And I say defensive line because defensive tackle, defensive end, but when we're thinking the Steelers, we're talking about interior because of the 3-4. Oh, who must be relevant, B? Ooh. That's a good question. Tip Ryman, unless he gets drafted earlier, maybe, the tight end. It's a good question. I feel like it'll be a cornerback. Why don't we do per position? I feel like it'll be a cornerback. That's something, Ryan, during the draft live streaming, we'll continue to prosecute that question. I like that. Out of interest, just so that we can create a debate, I will show you as well who I drafted. So I traded back. I should probably show you my trades first. So I traded back with the Ravens. I traded pick 30 and pick 62. Sorry, I traded pick 20 and pick 195 for pick 30 and pick 62, which I kind of liked because then I was at the back end of the first. But as I said, the players didn't really fall that I wanted to. I then traded pick 30 for pick 33 and pick 101 as well with Carolina. So that meant I was picking first in the second round. But I had Zach Frazier on the board. I had Cedric Van Pran on the board. Jackson Powers Johnson, I think, was also on the board. So I had all the 4 centers on the board. I was really excited for that. So I thought that really made sense to get pick 101 as well, get more depth, and we'll see how that turned out for me. Also in this draft, I traded pick 62 and pick 116 for 119, for pick 66 and pick 104. And then, as I mentioned before when we're doing it, I traded pick 84 for pick 85 and 206. Yeah, Fuzzy, I am. I'm going to the week 3 game. I just need to work out. We obviously need to see the draw where it is. Fingers crossed it's in Pittsburgh. But yes, I will be going to week 3 of the season. I'm in America in September. And yeah, I'm super excited to I'm on there for my honeymoon. I got married a year ago, but by the time my honeymoon comes up in September, but I'm going to America for a month in September. East Coast, West Coast, and yeah, pretty excited to make it to the Steelers game. Just fingers crossed it's at home. So moving back to the guys I picked, and we can all talk about these guys. Gene likes Fisk. So I got Zach Frazier at 33. I traded out the first round, and I kind of liked it because I got offered this up. I wasn't going to go to make trades, but this is what I got offered. Was able to get a bunch of picks. Heading to the West. So got Zach Frazier, center, as I say, at 33 in the second round. Got Malachi Corley, the awesome blocking, twitchy running back and a wide receiver's body. Malachi Corley, help fix wide receiver for the Steelers. Got Braden Fisk at 66. We still hadn't addressed tackle. I knew that's a need. So we got Roger Rosengarten out of Washington, who's not a bad prospect the more I look into him. Josh Newton out of TCU as a cornerback I'm very high on in the mid-rounds. Got him at 98. Got James Williams to play linebacker and or safety. I think he's going to be better safety in the Steelers. But I'm considering him a box player and a tight end defender. That's how I'm labeling James Williams. 6'5", 226 pounds. Played at safety next to Cameron Kitchens. You may have, for people out there who haven't heard of James Williams, you may have heard of Cameron Kitchens, one of the top safety prospects in the draft. Played alongside him in Miami. Just an incredible athlete. He's going to be huge when in the league, and very, very versatile player. Then we got Javonte Sweat at 111. Then I got Joe Milton at 178 out of Tennessee. I made another trade. And then I also got Tip Ryman, tight end out of Illinois. He's a big blocking guy. He's a big 6'4", 270-pound guy. Just to really hopefully let Darnell transition a little bit more into a receiving tight end. And that was pretty good value for Tip Ryman. So they were the picks that I chose to make. But yeah, they're probably maybe not for everyone. Not everyone loves that, but hey, Steelers got better at center. They got the center. They got Corley. They got Fisk. 3 prospects that I know most of the Steelers touching under the family are enjoying. James Williams. There's a lot of guys here with super high potential when they translate. And you get Fisk and you get Sweat and you've got Ben and Cam Hayward could be there for a year or two. You've got Lowry. This defensive line is going to cook. The only thing that it kind of sucks is then Montravius Adams becomes a bit superfluous. However, and they did re-sign him on a decent deal. So the only thing that could kind of suck. But it means that next year when Ogunjobi's kind of done, because you're going to probably cut him next year, and if Cam Hayward was done, we've had 2 guys learn off Cam, and we've got a guy that can go chase the quarterback in Fisk, and you get Javonte Sweat, who can go after and just destroy the run game. So that's what I really liked about that one. That'd be cool if I made the Pittsburgh game or getting these guys. Yeah, it's probably a good segue into it. So with the Steelers are playing in Pittsburgh in week 3, which would be awesome. You guys will all know all about it. We will organize something for those that want to be part of that. Definitely want to tailgate and all that good stuff. So I've got some really cool ideas. Need to have a chat with Shannon about it as well. My co-host with Steelers Global Perspective. If you're new to the channel and you're watching this, so that will be really exciting. I'm really excited to make it back. That'll be my second live game ever. Hopefully they win. Because that didn't happen last time. I went to that infamous 2019 Bills game. Imagine being a Steel fan for a lot of your life and you go watch Devlin Duck Hodges play. That was an experience. We are going to have a few, Fuzzy, we are definitely going to be having a few. That is it. That is 100%. It's 100% happening. Or schooners, as we say down under. All right. So, Ryan, you asked me about I think it was the late round earlier on in the show. You asked me about late round prospects was it outside linebacker or edge rusher? Because Now, this is interesting. So I haven't entered it in this because in case I showed it. I actually am doing that show. This is one of the last position. I've got safety still to come because now that we've done defensive line and defensive end, I've actually done all the positions except for quarterback, and I've only got safety to go and outside linebacker. So some of that will come this week, but we can still talk about some prospects. Gentlemen, what? I still think he can play, man. Like, I just don't like the way. I don't like the way it went down. I don't like the way it went down from his. I don't like that he didn't want to fight. That's really disappointing for me. Ryan, I've been going to one game a year since 2010. I love that. Yeah, my hope in time is that I can buy some season tickets and then I can go to 1 or 2 games a year and then I put the rest on like a StubHub or something like that. And then all that money can pay for my flight over, but each year. But yeah, that's going to be my goal as much as I can do is do 1 game a year. I really want to do a draft though. So I know Pittsburgh put in a bid for the draft. If they did I'll tell you this, if Pittsburgh do the draft, I'm at that draft, unless I'm at the stage of life where my family were having a baby. Anything other than that, I will be at that draft come hell or high water. So yeah. Mate, that is a take of the day. Yeah, KP is the kind of guy you have to tell to stick him. That is 100% it. 100%. Can you imagine, Ryan, and like the South Side and like the picks and like walking through the whole man, it would be absolutely awesome. Cool. I like that. Barton, I'm a Barton man. I'm not as high on JPJ as everyone else. I think Cedric Van Pran is underrated and will have a better career than a lot of people think. I like Frazier, firmly a second-round player in my mind. But yeah, I like Barton because of the versatility, and I do like JPJ. I should clarify that I do like JPJ. I just don't have a first-round grade on him, and I don't think he should be drafted earlier than 26. And that's assuming Barton goes before him. I know Barton is a versatile player. I know Barton needs to transition to center, but he has actually played half the snaps at center that JPJ has had. And that puts into perspective the JPJ situation. And I call him JPJ too, because JPJ won on, and that goes to Joey Porter Jr. JJ52, I got to see Duck Hodges and Mike V. Oh, wow. Okay. So I shouldn't feel as bad then. Okay. Oh, wait. You got to see them win games. I watched them lose. That kind of sucked. Fuzzy Monkey, ex-wife will be a free agent signing inside linebacker. I thought it was a defensive tackle. Oh, cool. Keep hitting with him. That's what we're here for live. I'm a Colson guy. I think Cooper in the right scheme will be a good prospect. I think the Philadelphia Eagles would be dumb not to go get him, particularly. I know that sounds an odd thing to say, but just everything I see with their defense. I remember a really big fan of Colson because of the proven production. Cooper also rushed it outside, so he does have that versatility. So I do like that about him. But the Steelers don't really need that because we've got Highsmith, Watt, and Herbig. And Colson is just a rock-solid guy, made a bunch of tackles, a classic day 2 pick for any team. I think he's bigger than the other guys, and that's the thing. Cooper, I think he was at Combine 228, 230. His other measurements, he was tall. He was a good height. Some of the other metrics didn't do as well. But I'm a big fan of Colson. Size, production, pedigree out of Michigan. When Michigan made big defensive plays, and this is how I do a lot of my tape watching, and this across a lot of different sports. I always look for the guys that are in and around the big plays. What did they do to contribute, negative or positive? If there's a big run and you're playing from the other team and you're on defense, were you at fault? Did you go and chase down a guy? I think about when you look at plays, you want to see who's in and around the ball. That's why I know Trevondre Sweat was going to be a great player when I started talking about him early on in the college football season. That's why I'm really high on a guy like Christian Jones out of Texas at right tackle. But Colson is a guy, as I say, production, potential, pedigree. He's got all three. Proven performer. So kind of 4. Bring him in. And as I did a show, we did a show, the biggest hopes and biggest fears. I don't know if you saw that. Cool. You may have apologies if you did. I talked about that on that show. So delve into it. I think that we talked about hopes and then fears. So it'll be, I think it was a 25-minute show. So it's about 18, 20 minutes in. But I talked about Colson and how he could shore up this Steelers linebacking core for the next 4 or 5 years with Patrick Queen. And then you've got two guys like Cole Hulk. Like, when my thinking is Alandon Roberts is this is his last year being a number 2. He's probably then a number 3 in this team. Holcomb is going to take a while to come back from injury. Could be there later on in the season. So you bring in Hulk, like, not knowing what Holcomb's going to do. Alandon Roberts is not necessarily, he played better in pass coverage than a lot of people thought, but he's not a true pass coverage guy. Colson's an all-rounder. I just love that. And hit me with another one as well. I'd love to do another one. I like this one. But Colson is someone I really, really like him. And I think you can shore up the Steelers linebacking core for 4 or 5 years, not have to pick there because you got Queen. I know he's on a 3-year deal, but if that works out, and he's super cheap and it's costing you like $15 million. That's perfect. You agree with both. Cool. But yeah, hit me with another one. I like these name ones. Okay. Then we go to, I'm going to take that off. And we're back. Sorry, guys. I don't know what happened there. But guys, I think you can hear me. I don't know what's going on right now. Yeah, that was really, really weird. Big J must have. I feel like I've been like hacked or something. But yeah, that's really, really weird. It just suddenly the web browser with StreamYard decided that it didn't want to accept. There we go. Here we go. All right, I can continue with you guys now. I don't know what's happening, guys, but yeah, as JS said, the technical difficulties are never too far away. So yeah, be very, very careful. Thank you all for hanging in there. Sorry about that. Cool. Colson. Yeah, he did play with a broken hand for some of it, so that was pretty crazy. Again, really, really good prospect. Ryan says, I saw Andrew Guns in the Cardinals to replace Mike Vick, who only completed. Yeah, crazy. DG put me in the Matrix. All right, sorry for that, guys. I knew the audio was working, but then when I tried to connect the webcam, it didn't work. I'm gonna probably have to replace my media hub. I think that's the thing, which sucks. There, a couple $100. So Daredevil said you like Trice Knight. I love Trice Knight. I know Daredevil, you watch all the videos, but Trice Knight's guy I'm really high on. Huge production. Has played really, really, really well in terms of what he's done at University of Texas El Paso. He's a guy that a lot of people are sleeping on. He's going to be an excellent late round pick. I was going to pick Trice Knight in that mock that I just did. I showed you guys before at the next pick. And then someone else picked him earlier. I think if I look who picked him, I think he went 140 maybe. I think Trice Knight. He went. You might not be on this list because I only screenshotted where linebackers, where defensive linemen went. But I know he went. I know he went higher. Like I literally was going. I was literally anyway. The point is, I was literally going to go grab him, and he wasn't there. So that one. But Ryan, you did ask about overall guys in terms of sort of the edge rusher side. As I said, we are going to look at that at a video. However, I do think it's a value for me to try and show you. You particularly, I think, wanted to know some of the later round guys. So I will have a look at that. We'll bring up Pro Football Network. I think it's probably the best way to do this, and their draft rankings, because I like as I said, I think that makes sense because that's what we've been using for the mock draft, Pro Football Network. And I think that as well, they're probably the reason why I give a background. The reason why I use Pro Football Network is they, to me, over several years of drafts now, have the most NFL relevant is probably the right word, not ready, but NFL relevant assessments, rankings, what have you. It's not based on stats like missing half a sack, like PFF. Like, for a good example, PFF have Brandon Dorlus with one whole less sack than what last year in production than what Sports Reference do from Pro Football Reference. Except the problem is that Sports Reference doesn't count as many, it doesn't track as many of the same stats in college as some of the PFF does. But I will bring up the edge rushers because there's some good guys like Booker and stuff like that who could be really, really good prospects. But at the same time, I think you were looking particularly about late round guys. So we're going to go here. And we're going to go here. Cool. All right. So hopefully you guys can see this one. Bit of a wild stream today. So we look at edge rushers. So Austin Booker is a guy that's going to go day 2. Huge production, but 1 year production, massive guy. In any other year, if this was last year, I'd be saying the Steelers have to pick this guy as soon as they freaking can. But it's kind of not where we're sitting at the moment. If you go right down this list, you've got guys like Cedric Johnson out of Ole Miss. Xavier Thomas out of Clemson could be an interesting prospect for the Steelers. I wish through the draft process I'd been able to do a bit more on Zion Tupuola Fatuai. I think I said that right. Out of Washington. I think he's interesting. I've heard a bit about this Grambling State guy as well, but it's not really that deep an edge class, unlike other years. So I don't know if we're going to see like a late round guy, Ryan, out of there that's going to really do something for the Steelers, like, and be something. I quite like Chris Bracewell as well. Again, if we didn't have Highsmith, I'd be going right after Bracewell, like, for sure. But it's not. This is a really weak defensive. Not really weak. There's a lot less top prospects and a lot less depth in key positions in this NFL draft. Like Bucky Brooks and Daniel Jeremiah most years they do an offensive draft of players in the first round and a defensive draft. And by the time they got midway through the first round, they're starting to pick guys where they only pick like offense or defense. And then by the time they got through halfway through the first round of their defensive one, they're picking day 3 guys, or at least third round draft picks. So that's kind of the thing about this draft is that it doesn't have a depth at some of these positions. And that's because a lot of those guys came out last year as well with the whole COVID year rule. But if we go to DT, I'll switch it over to defensive tackle. Now Mason Smith in here, 71 player, right? Like, and that's why you see how high I am, higher than Chris Jenkins. Tyrondre Sweat's dipped down the board because of the DWI. Again, they don't have necessarily everyone on here. They only do like 300 or 400 on the big board. But from a big board perspective, that's where it is. Look how high Evan Anderson is on that list as well. He's rocketed up their boards from like the 250, 260. So yeah, it's kind of interesting, but we'll definitely be doing the O-line guys. So the outside linebackers, edge rushers. I'll go through some of the other prospects that I know about as well. This week, that's probably, I've got, as I said, that's not another position other than safety. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that'll all be out my time, so Australia. So you'll have that over in American time, definitely probably by Tuesday, Wednesday, you'll have all of that. So that's pretty exciting. But I don't know if there's any final questions. Otherwise, we'll kind of wrap this show. We'll try and keep it to an hour. But I appreciate everyone hanging in there. Sorry about the weird technical issue that happened late. StreamYard just does not. Technical stuff needs a bit of a refresh. So that's kind of where we're sitting now. But yeah, happy to take any final questions before we wrap up. But this is kind of a nice thing to do. I do enjoy doing the lives. I do enjoy looking at all these prospects. So yeah, JJ. So I don't want to cover in this show. So we're definitely going to be doing. So I'm definitely going to do day 3 all live. Do the 6-hour live stream again. So that's going to be absolutely nuts. Day 2, I'll definitely do, but I think day 2, Marky D and I are going to merge that from Steel Nation Australia. But we're merging it so it's live on both channels. But you see you'll see one stream, whichever one of us you're watching at the time. Day 1, I'm going to do a live stream in the morning my time. So kind of early evening, late afternoon for you guys in the States. Before the draft, just some draft news, big hopes and dreams of everyone, like that sort of all that cool stuff, just overall draft things, projecting some things to happen on day 1. Will be a reaction video to the first round pick, and then I will be going live after the Steelers pick. Pretty much as soon as that reaction video is out, we'll go live. So that'll be that. And then maybe if Shannon and I can figure another one out, we'll try and do that. But yeah, that's kind of, there'll be a lot of live streams coming up this week. So maybe, yeah, that's probably how we're sitting at it. So they might potentially do one on Thursday, but there definitely a lot of live streams on Thursday my time, so your Wednesday. But there definitely a lot of live streams going on over the next week. So when I'm not going to wait till after the draft, we'll do all the good things that we did last year. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up as well. Gave me another chance to talk about that. Gene says dead set first round pick. I think it's leaning that way, dude. I think it is. I feel like that or corner, unless they make a big blockbuster move and trade up to go get a wide receiver. But that's going to be a massive blockbuster move, and it's going to set this team behind. I think they're going to let the draft fall to them at cornerback and wide receiver. So I think it's tackle or center, and I could well be Mims. It's Mims or Barton, I feel. But also depends who picks them. They might get picked first. I just hope not JPJ at 20. I think that'll be an overdraft. But that's probably a good way to close out the show. Thanks everyone for sticking with me. Had an awesome live chat. This was really, really cool. Really good way to talk about defensive linemen. I feel like for some teams out there, they don't really care about defensive linemen. We as Steelers fans, and certainly the Steelers do care about defensive linemen. But if you are watching this not live, and let me know in the comments what you thought about all the different things we did. Let me know what you thought about my draft rankings as well. Do you hate them? Do you love them? Do you not? The rankings on the board right now are the big board from Pro Football Network, but obviously I presented mine earlier on the show. You can scroll back to that. But we've got a lot more content to come on Steelers Touchdown Under, and it doesn't just stop at the draft. We keep rolling through. There's content all summer. There's content into the season. We keep going. It's an all-year-round thing for the Steelers, and it's an all-year-round thing for us. As J-Double says, thanks, mate. Always a great show. Later from George Teston. And, I'll catch you all later with no more tech issues. As always, go Steelers.